Hello class, we're going to be jumping right into our multiplying decimals notes. Now, when you're adding and subtracting decimals, magnets matter. But right now we're talking about a whole new setup where we're going to be multiplying decimals. When you multiply decimals, just a tip, Miss Madera does not require this step, but it's a really good idea to estimate first. For example, if I have 2.5 times 3.1, I can round and say, well, 2.5 is really close to 3, and 3.1 is also rounded to 3. So that means my answer when I multiply these two numbers with decimals should be somewhere around 9 in order for it to be reasonable. It's going to help you place the decimal point in the product. Remember, product is the word for the answer of a multiplication problem. Last, you're going to check to see if your answer is reasonable, if it makes sense. So let's take a look at this first problem. We have 3.78 or 3 78/100ths, and then I have times 4.1. I'm going to estimate this to the nearest whole number. So I'm going to look and see, is this going to make me round up to 4 or leave it at 3? Well, 4 or more, 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, let it rest. Excuse me. So this 7.8 is going to be rounded closest to 4. And then I'm going to round this number 1. Oh, that's going to stay rounded. Oops, excuse me, that's a 1. This is also going to be just a 4. Well, I know 4 times 4 is 16, so my answer should be at or around this number. So I'm going to actually multiply 3.78 times 4.1. 8 times 1 is 8. 7 times 1 is 7. 1 times 3 is 3. Tic-tac-toe. 4 times 8 is 32. 4 times 7 is 28, 29, 30, 31. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15. And this is 8. Sorry for squeezing it down here. Do the best you can. This is 9. This is 4, 5, and 1. And then what I'm going to teach you today is it's all about the swoops, count them over. So I have 3 swoops in my problem, so that means I have 3 swoops in my answer. And then my answer is 15.498. And this is very close to 16, so my answer is reasonable. All right, I'm going to move on. When multiplying decimals, you can also use the following steps to correctly place the decimal point. First, you multiply the two factors as if they were both whole numbers. You act as if those decimals are not there. Don't worry about them just yet. You will need them later, absolutely. But when you're multiplying like I did before, I just multiplied as if this was 378 or just 41. You don't line up the decimals. Magnets matter only when adding and subtracting, not multiplying, not dividing. All right, on number 6, you're going to count the number of decimal places in both factors to find out how many places they are needed in the product. So over here, I want you to also write nice and big. The swoops, how many swoops are there? You're going to count at the right. So notice I started over here. This is the right side. And then I counted inwards. And then you also can use estimation to check. So let's do one together before you start working on group work. So I'm going to estimate this is close. If I round this number to the nearest whole number, oops, sorry, my camera's a little shaky. This is close to 6. I would round up. And this would stay at 2. And I know 6 times 2 is 12. So I'm looking for a number that should be at or around this number. Doesn't have to be 12 because that's just an estimate. That's just a guess that I'm using. So I'm going to set this up as if I were multiplying them as whole numbers. So 7 times 2 is 14. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Tick, tack, toe. And use a different color. Now I'm worried about this number. 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And then add them up. This is 4, 7, 4, 2, and 1. And now the last step, I'm going to go back and see, well, where was my decimal point? And now I'm going to count the swoops. You can have the decimal places in there when you're doing your algorithm for multiplying. But I'm going to count the swoops now and notice that it goes 1, 2, 3. You want to count all the swoops in the whole problem, not just in one of the numbers. So I have 3 swoops. So that means my decimal place starts at the right, goes in 1, 2, and 3. There is my final answer. I'm going to write it nice and neat over here. You have 12.474. And that is, oops, very reasonable. All right, you guys are ready to move on to the back side to practice multiplying the other decimals. At the bottom, make sure you read it carefully so that way you set up this word problem correctly.